Hey everyone, welcome to today's class. In today's class, we're going to look into more elements that we have in HTML. We have a lot of elements and we're going to see them one after the other, and also look into HTML display, nested HTML elements, and empty HTML elements. So in our last class, we started HTML elements and we saw a few of them, like the H1, the H1 to H6, which is for heading 1 towards heading 6, right? We saw there are different sizes and differences. H1 is quite bigger than H2 in size, in text size, and also H2 is quite bigger than H3 in text size, and so on and so forth. So this is for heading, right? For a heading of our document and all of that. We also saw, P element or P tag, which is for paragraphing, right? So if you haven't seen that video, make sure you go back and watch that video. It is very important and necessary. Don't miss out on any class or any video, right? And if you are coming across our page for the first time, welcome to Code with Christ. This page or YouTube channel is dedicated in teaching web development from scratch for free. So if you're interested in becoming a web developer, either a full stack web developer, front end web developer, back end web developer, this channel is the right channel for you. So I urge you to subscribe to this channel, turn on your notification bell so that you'll be the first to be notified whenever new video drops. And also don't forget to like, comment, and share. Sharing is very important, right? So today we are going to look into display elements, HTML display, and also look into nested HTML element. So let's start from nested HTML element. HTML elements can be nested. This means that elements can contain other elements. All HTML document consists of nested elements. Yeah, just like we have here, that we have this body that is serving as a container for all the elements and code we are going to be writing. So this having other elements, this is what is known as nested element. Nested element means an element inside another element. This is an element, body is an element, and it's having H1, is having H2, H3, H4, H5, H6, P elements, and so on. So it's a nested element. So nested element means an element inside another element, right? So, and it could be nested multiple times. Elements could be nested multiple times. Let's take, for instance, we have a P tag or P element, right? And inside it we have H6, right? This H6 can now have its own content, element content. So I can say this is the heading of this nested element. So nested elements, right? So now and then, so this P tag is having this H6. This is a nested element, right? So, and the P tag or P element can also have its own content, right? Its own text content, right? So now we have this is the first subsection for this nested element. So this is what is called nested element, and we can also another element inside. It could be nested multiple times. We could have a triple nested element. So H6, right, and says this is the closing header. So this is a closing header. So let me run this in our browser so that you could see that it will also display irrespective as it also. All right, so you can see now this is the heading. Okay, it's quite too tiny. Let me use H um let me use H3 or 4 to make it come out visible. So let me delete this. I use H4. All right, so move back to our browser. It's loading. All right, so you can see this is the heading for this nested element. All right, this is heading for this nested element. I think the size, okay, it's quite, let me zoom. So now you see this is the heading for this nested element, and this is, so it is a nested element inside another element. So, and it could be nested multiple times. You could nest different elements in different elements, right? So now next we are going to move into display, right? HTML display. So, and display is very important because you cannot be sure how elements or HTML elements will be displayed in our browser. Large or small screen and resized window will create different results. So with HTML, you cannot change the display by adding extra spaces or extra lines in your HTML code. The browser will automatically remove any extra spaces and lines within that page that is displayed. Display is very important because the way our browser displays our documents in different screen size, like the desktop computer, the tablet, and your phone, right, is quite different. So you cannot be sure how it's going to be it's going to display your element irrespective of you adding extra spaces or lines. Let's take for instance, I have p elements. I have p element. Let's say coding I love coding, and now I decide to add this extra space, unnecessary space, right? Just maybe because I wanted it to also display like this in my browser. I wanted it to also have this a lot of space in my browser, so I can say I love coding because it feels good, right? And then maybe I click enter and I have another, maybe I click enter, another way line, another, on a unnecessary line, and I say, yeah, maybe I want it in my display, but no, the browser can't, you know, display it like that. You can see here, those extra lines and spaces has been removed. It has been removed, and that is why we have other elements to actually achieve this kind of thing that we want to achieve, because there are elements that no matter how you add extra spaces and lines, it won't be displayed like that. Browser will automatically remove those extra spaces and lines when the page is what displayed. Something as a perfect example is p tag. So p tag, no matter how you try to modify it inside your p element in your code, it will not actually display like that. Rather, it will display, every element has its own unique display property or characteristics. This is how it ought to display. No matter how you try to add extra spaces and all of that in your code, is not going to affect it, right? So, and this is usually because of other maybe things you want to achieve, like poem, right? Let's say you are writing a poem, right, and you want it to display as a poem, right? With p tag you cannot achieve it, but with something that's pre tag, which is known as pre-formatted text. Okay, let me take for instance, let me give you an example. Take for instance, I have p tag, and then let me try to achieve a poem, and then okay, I gave a space, and then I say I I okay, I'm so happy. Okay, so in my mind, this is a poem, right? Let me just copy this down. And okay, I'm so happy. I'm so happy. Very much. So now this p elements, I always, after writing each line, I come down to next line. After writing each line, I come down to next line. In my browser, it won't be displayed like that. You can see that everything was joined together. So for me to actually achieve a poem, I use what is known as PRE tag, which is what? Pre-formatted text. It is a pre-formatted text. It's used for actually pre-formatting our text. Copy it. Let me copy this and paste it inside this particular PRE tag. You find out that it will be displayed differently, right? So now achieving, you see that what we now have, something like this. It is now pre-formatted, displayed exactly according to how, we write it. If I decide to add spaces in between them, you find out that it will observe those spaces. It will observe these line spaces that we added. This line spaces is going to observe it. You know, that is what makes it a pre-formatted text. Okay, our browser is still loading, so that's what makes it a pre-formatted text. So, but with some elements, you will not achieve this, right? So, okay, so you find out that we also have these extra lines that has been added, right? It observed every line or spaces that is added inside that particular element. So now another element we're going to look into is HR element. I talked about we're going to look into empty elements. And what are empty elements? Empty elements or empty tags means that they don't have an end tag. They don't have an end tag. Empty elements, element that doesn't have an end tag. Some elements consist of opening and closing tag, or start tag and what end tag. The start tag is less than the element name slash and the element name and what greater than. So some elements are known as empty elements which doesn't have a close tag, right? Example of them is HR tag. So HR tag defines a semantic break in an HTML page, and it's most often displayed as a horizontal row. Is used for horizontal row, right? The HR tag or element is used to separate content or define a change in an HTML page, right? So it's used to define a horizontal line. You can see this horizontal line drawn. So we use, HR tag to achieve that. So this is known as what? Empty tag or empty element, empty tag, right? So another example we have is tag. So let's take BR tag is used for what? Is used to break elements into a new line. The HTML BR tag defines a line break. We use BR tag if you want to break a line, if you want to break a text into a new line without actually declaring another another element. Let's take for instance, we want to write two different content in one element, right? Let's take for instance, I say I love coding. I love coding. Coding is amazing. Coding is amazing. So now these are two content, right? Now there's a way I can actually, okay, if I run this, if you check our browser, You see, I love coding, but then I want this to come to the next line without actually, I want this coding is amazing to come to the next line without actually declaring, another element, right? Instead of me saying p tag, I do p tag and then say I love coding, right? I love coding, and then I come to the next line and say say this in, right? Instead of me doing this, trying to break it into the next line with um different elements, right? With another element, I can actually do that in one element using br tag. So if I have this, I love coding, okay, coding is amazing. So I have this, I can actually break this in a new line without actually declaring another p element, right? Using br tag. So br tag is another, another of empty tag or empty element. So this br and then enter, you see that it's going to break in a new line. It's going to break in a new line. So okay, our browser is loading. So you can see that it broke to a new line, but then not having, because it's still one element that is having them, it's no longer like it's not having the characteristics of a new element. Unlike this ones now that this one and this one that is declared with the separate elements, they each of that content will, because of is inside an element, is going to have the characteristics of that particular element. But this one that we broke to a new line with just br tag, there is no excess space around it, there is no excess margin around it. So that is it for empty elements, display and all of that. So in our next class, we do more of you know, block level elements and inline level elements. So anticipate our next class. So if you've missed any video, please go back and watch it. If you have not subscribed, make sure you subscribe. Thank you for watching. Bye.